This house? You bought it with the luck of this family, not your brains. My father stood in the doorway of my apartment, blocking me from entering. He was wearing my bathrobe. Ashley needs a venue that screams money to keep her fiancé, he sneered. And since you are the family jinx who drives men away, the least you can do is disappear for a month. Go stay at a hotel. We need the space. I looked down at the hallway floor. Piled next to him were garbage bags filled with my clothes. On top sat my university diploma. The glass shattered. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I realized right then that they were not family. They were squatters. Okay, I said. I turned around, walked back to the elevator, and pulled out my phone. I didn't open a hotel app. I opened my smart home admin dashboard. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I sat in my car parked 2 blocks away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wasn't cold, but I couldn't stop shivering. It wasn't fear. It was a rage so old and so deep I thought I had buried it years ago. But Gary, my father, had said the word. Jinx. That word dragged me straight back to being 12 years old, curled up on the back seat of our station wagon, screaming in agony. My appendix had burst. I felt like I was being torn apart from the inside, but my mother wasn't holding my hand. She wasn't telling me it would be okay. She was in the front seat, fixing my younger sister Ashley's hair, screaming at me. You are doing this on purpose, she had yelled, her eyes wild in the rearview mirror. Today is the Little Miss Sunshine pageant. We are going to be late, because of you. Why do you always have to ruin everything? Ashley sat next to me in her fluffy white dress, looking at me with pure disgust because my crying was distracting her. We missed the pageant check-in by 10 minutes. Ashley didn't get to walk the stage, and while I was being wheeled into emergency surgery, fading under the anesthesia, the last thing I heard was my father telling the doctor, "She is just a jinx. Bad energy follows her." They didn't visit me in recovery. They were too busy taking Ashley out for ice cream to make up for my mistake. I took a deep breath, forcing the memory back down. That little girl who wanted their love was gone. The woman sitting in this car was a shark who ate distressed assets for breakfast. I reached for my iPad and opened the security app. Gary thought he had won because he was inside. He didn't realize that in a smart home, the walls have eyes. The feed loaded in high definition. The camera in the living room showed them clearly. My brother, Arthur, and my sister, Ashley, were sitting on my custom Italian white leather sofa, the one I had waited 6 months to import. They were popping a bottle of Dom Perignon. My bottle of Dom Perignon, which I had been saving for my own sale closing. I turned up the volume on the feed. "This place is perfect," Ashley said, kicking her feet up on the coffee table. She was wearing shoes. Gregory is going to flip. When I told him Dad bought this for me as a dowry, he actually choked on his drink. His family thinks we are loaded. Arthur laughed, pouring more of my wine into a red plastic cup. "You are a genius, Ash. Once you get that ring on your finger, who cares if we have to kick Jessica out later? She is a doormat. Dad told her to go to a hotel, and she just walked away. She is pathetic. She is just a house sitter." Ashley grinned. "This is my house now. At least for the wedding photos. We just need to hide her ugly art." I watched them toast to their brilliance. I watched them laugh at my expense. The shivering stopped. This wasn't just a family imposing on boundaries. This was fraud. They were using my $3 million asset to trick a wealthy family into a marriage based on a lie. They weren't just stealing my space. They were stealing my identity to launder their own reputation. I looked at the screen. Arthur spilled wine on the white leather. He didn't even wipe it up. They thought I was the jinx. They thought I was the one who brought bad luck. I wiped a single cold tear from my cheek. "You are right," I whispered to the empty car. "I am the jinx, and I am about to show you exactly what bad luck looks like." The next morning, I practiced my defeated daughter voice in the rearview mirror. I let my shoulders slump. I relaxed my jaw. I needed to sound like the beaten-down girl they had trained me to be, not the woman who negotiates multi-million-dollar commercial leases for breakfast. I dialed my father. He answered on the first ring, probably expecting me to beg. "I am sorry, Dad," I said, forcing a wobble into my voice. "I was tired last night." "You are right. Ashley deserves a perfect wedding. I do not want to be the reason she is unhappy." I heard him exhale, a sound of pure, smug satisfaction. "I knew you would come to your senses, Jessica," he said. "We are family. We forgive you. Just don't let it happen again." "I won't," I lied. "But there is a problem with the building management. Since I am leaving, I need to register Arthur as the primary guest so he can get past the doormen. They are really strict. I need him to meet me to sign the authorization forms." "Fine," Gary said. "He needs the keycard anyway. He will meet you at the coffee shop on 3rd Street in 20 minutes. Don't be late. He hung up. I stared at the phone. He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't thank me. He just took. I drove to the coffee shop. Arthur was 20 minutes late. When he finally walked in, he was wearing sunglasses indoors and talking loudly on his phone. He sat down without looking at me, snapped his fingers at a barista, and pointed to a pastry. Yeah, she caved, he said into his phone, laughing. I told you. She always folds. Okay, later. He hung up and looked at me with a smirk that made my skin crawl. So, he said. Where is the keycard? Ashley wants to move the DJ equipment in by noon. I have it right here, I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out a heavy, cream-colored envelope. I also pulled out a document. But you need to sign the building registration first. Arthur rolled his eyes. More paperwork? You are such a buzzkill, Jess. It is for the VIP access, I said softly. This was the bait. I knew my brother. He didn't care about rules, but he cared about status. If you sign this, you get the black tier keycard. It gives you access to the private elevator so you don't have to ride with the neighbors. It opens the rooftop infinity pool after hours. And it lets you use the valet service for your friends. Arthur's eyes lit up. Private elevator? Nice. Finally, some perks. He grabbed the pen. Here is the thing about predators like Arthur. They are so busy looking for the next meal that they never look at the trap. The document in front of him had a cover sheet that said Resident VIP Authorization in big, bold letters. But the pages underneath were something very different. It was a short-term commercial event rental agreement. I didn't invent this document. I use it for my corporate clients when they rent event spaces. And it contains a specific legal loophole that was about to ruin his life. If I let Arthur stay as a house guest, he would legally become a tenant after a few days. If I wanted to kick him out, I would have to go through a 90-day eviction process. The police wouldn't touch him. But a commercial client? That is different. When you sign a commercial contract, you waive your residential rights. You are not a tenant. You are a customer. And if a customer destroys property, or violates safety codes, they are trespassing. They can be removed instantly. And there was one more clause I had added to page 4. The signatory assumes 100% personal financial liability for any damage to the building's infrastructure, safety systems, or common areas. Arthur didn't flip to page 4. He didn't even read page 1. He was too busy texting Ashley about the infinity pool. He scrawled his signature on the bottom line. Arthur Miller. There, he said, tossing the pen back to me. Give me the card. I handed him the key card. It felt heavy in my hand, like a grenade with the pin pulled. Have fun, I said. The building is very sensitive, Arthur. Just be careful. Relax, Mom, he sneered. We know how to party with class. You wouldn't understand. He grabbed his pastry and walked out without paying. I picked up the document. I blew on the ink to make sure it was dry. I folded it carefully and placed it in my bag. He thought he had just signed for a VIP pool pass. He had no idea he had just signed a confession that would cost him more money than he would make in his entire life. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted bitter, but it went down smooth. 3 days later, I sat in a 24-hour diner directly across the street from my building. I had a clear view of the penthouse windows on the top floor. They were glowing like a beacon in the night sky. I sipped my black coffee and opened my laptop. The security feed was live and streaming in high definition. It was the night of the Bachelor Mixer. Arthur had invited 50 of his closest friends, which meant 50 people who were just as loud and entitled as he was. I watched them file in through the lobby. My parents arrived first. Gary was wearing a tuxedo that was a size too tight, strutting past the doorman like he owned the entire city block. My mother was right behind him, directing the caterers, pointing at my expensive rugs with an imperious finger. They looked so proud. They looked like victors. They thought they had bullied me into submission and successfully stolen my life for the weekend. But then I saw what Arthur's friends were carrying in from the service elevator. My stomach turned, but a cold smile touched my lips. They were hauling in crates of alcohol, massive speakers, and 3 large, brass hookahs. And tucked under Arthur's arm was a black case labeled Cold Spark Pyrotechnics. Indoor fireworks. I looked at the digital copy of the contract on my desktop. Clause 4. Section B. Absolute prohibition of open flames, pyrotechnics, and indoor smoking. They weren't just bending rules, they were smashing them. Arthur planned to set off pyrotechnics inside my sealed high-rise. Stupid, dangerous, predictable. I didn't need to hack anything, I only needed to use what I already controlled and let their own recklessness do the rest. By 1 a.m., the party was at its peak. My living room looked like a nightclub. About 50 people packed in, drinking, dancing, and ignoring how heavy the air had become. Arthur climbed onto my coffee table with a mic and a vodka bottle. soaking up the attention like it was a coronation. Then he cued the cold spark machines. Silver columns shot upward into the smoky haze. Seconds later, the building's systems reacted. Lights cut to emergency strobes. The fire alarm roared. And the sprinkler heads finally gave way. The first blast wasn't clean water. In old high-rises, what sits in those pipes for years isn't clear, it's black, stagnant sludge. It poured from the ceiling in a foul curtain, coating my white leather sofa, soaking the Persian rugs, and hitting Ashley standing beside Arthur right on the head. Her white designer dress turned gray, then black, instantly. People slipped, fell, screamed, and stampeded. In under a minute, my $3 million penthouse was trashed. I closed my laptop, sipped my coffee, and let the chaos become their invoice. The front door didn't open, it was breached. 3 police officers and the building manager, Mr. Henderson, stormed in. I followed a beat later with a manila folder in my hand. Inside, my parents huddled near the kitchen island, drenched and shaking, their nice clothes ruined. Ashley sobbed, wiping sludge from her eyes. My mother lunged toward me, begging me to tell the police it was all a mistake. I didn't need to. The evidence was everywhere. The pyrotechnics still smoking, and on the coffee table, floating in black water, were bags of white powder and paraphernalia. Arthur's friends hadn't hidden fast enough. Arthur screamed, "It's my sister's place!" The officers cuffed him anyway. Unauthorized pyrotechnics in a residential high-rise wasn't a misunderstanding. With drugs on scene, it was a felony problem. Mr. Henderson turned on me, furious, shouting about leaks into the unit below, compromised elevators, and massive structural damage, then vowed to sue me for every penny. "No, you won't," I said, and handed him the document Arthur had signed without reading. "I'm not the liable party. They aren't residents. They aren't my guests. This is a commercial client, Arthur Miller. And per this contract, he assumed 100% personal financial liability for damage to the building's safety systems and infrastructure." Henderson's rage cooled into pure bureaucratic ice. He walked straight to Arthur. "My legal team will file a lien against your assets tomorrow morning. Preliminary building damage. $150,000 before we calculate remediation downstairs." Arthur finally looked at his VIP autograph and understood it wasn't a flex. It was a sentence. Later, in the quiet hallway, sirens gone, black water still dripping, my parents shook with fury and shame. My father called me heartless. My mother called me a curse. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I just turned on the lights." Then I told them the truth. My insurance would cover my floors and furniture. The building's structural damage, repairs, and legal fees. Arthur's signature covered that. Don't ever call me again. The fallout was total. Ashley's wedding collapsed after the police report went public and her fiancé's family dug into the fraud. She ended up in my parents' basement, surrounded by boxes of unused wedding favors. Arthur declared bankruptcy 6 months later. The judgment was absolute. Wages garnished. Credit ruined for years. As for me, I cleaned, repaired, listed the penthouse, and sold it for a $400,000 profit. I moved to Seattle. I haven't spoken to them in 3 years, and my life has never been more peaceful. Tell me in the comments, what's the most expensive lesson you've ever had to teach a family member? And follow for more stories about the price of betrayal.